Okay, about 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, my life was normal. I'd left the Navy in 1993 as a Lieutenant Commander. I got involved in the business community in Plymouth. I got involved with the Plymouth Chamber of Commerce. I was a director of that. Well, what popped up in my life was an organisation called Common Purpose. I'd never heard of it at that stage. And you've all come along to a meeting, so you've heard about it now, so you've got a bit of an advantage. But all I knew is I was living in a world of threats, bullying and intimidation, which was being conducted by the City Council, by the police, by people in a local regeneration company and a few other individuals. And it was obvious to me that they were linked together somehow. Have you noticed that nothing works in this country anymore? It doesn't matter where you go. If you go to the hospital, there's an air of chaos. There are mistakes being made. There's basic care missing. There's people left in corridors. There's disease in the hospitals. If you go into the schools, there's bullying, or the school is out of control. If you look at the police have suddenly become very strange. 1 minute they are cuddling people on the streets and learning to skateboard, and the next minute they're acting in a very brutal way, as they did against the Countryside Alliance demonstrations in London. A Common Purpose works under the Chatham House rule, and that rule says that basically you're going to hold meetings where you're not going to say who gave the information, you're not going to say where you got that information from, you're not going to say who attended the meeting. So I'm going to say very gently, it's sort of closed door, it's sort of secretive. We didn't know anything about Common Purpose, and we started to dig in the city. And we dug in a special way. And what we found shocked us, because everywhere we went, we found there were common purpose people. In the hospitals, in the police, in the schools. Accountants, businesses, solicitors, newspaper editors, regional assembly. We had never heard of it, and then we find it everywhere. Now, a colleague who's a bit of a special person, also ex-forces, did some research, and he found some publications from Common Purpose. What they were talking about was how to set up a structure in a city so that Common Purpose controlled the city rather than the democratically elected council. So what I've done here is a little diagram. There's a pyramid of power, and this is Plymouth, and this shows key people who are Common Purpose. So the council leader, the chief executive, the head of social services, the head of planning, the head of legal services, all of those key people in the council were members of this very special organisation. And if we looked in the city wider, we found that other key people were also involved. So there's the head of the government office, South West, there's the head of the regional development agency, the Chamber of Commerce, colleagues of mine. I'd never heard them talk about Common Purpose. Local police. I'm going to spend a bit of time on the police. The head of the regional assembly, the local university. And then we started to discover some things we really got interested in, because we found that some of the criminals in the city were involved. And we also found that some of the people with unpleasant interests were involved. And if you say to me, how unpleasant, I'm going to say people we strongly suspect of being paedophiles. If you don't know it, there is an explosion of paedophilia in this country.
Yeah.
Not only is it happening, it is being covered up at extremely high level by members of the police and members of the judiciary. And senior politicians are involved. I could talk on that subject, but I can't tonight. But if you say, what does unpleasant mean, I am talking paedophilia. But what Common Purpose does is it injects its people into all of these areas. It recruits them, it pushes them into the area, it doesn't bother to tell you it's doing it. Can anybody tell me what this is called?
Subversion.
It's called subversion, infiltration. And where do their ideas come from? Well, they come from a load of think tanks. Now, around the government and around members of parliament, around the cabinet, doesn't matter whether you talk Conservatives or Labour or Lib Dems, they've got a cluster of advisors. And I'm going to suggest to you that these advisors are, there is no other word for it, they are bastards. Because those advisors are working to destroy this country. So all of these ideas, Marxism, goes into common purpose, and they are injected into society. We've got Piers Merchant, Managing Director of European Legal Director of Lehman Brothers. I was only interested in Lehman Brothers because I think, I may be wrong, but one of the PR men for UKIP came from Lehman Brothers. And I found common purpose in the Conservative Party, because Francis Moore knew all about it, and I found it in the Labour Party, and I found it in the Lib Dem Party, and I believe I found it in UKIP.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Here's a police constable getting involved in political activities to do with anti-poverty protests. He's senior common purpose. Here's Matthew Taylor, intimately involved, chief advisor on political strategy, the Prime Minister's office. So common purpose is right in to the top level of government. It's charity. It's based on Marxism. Do you know that Gordon Brown was put into power by the Scottish Communists? Does anybody know that? No. But we haven't mentioned this man, Lord Falconer. And here he is, the single shareholder of the Millennium Dome Company, interested in diversity, interested in common purpose, and I believe he's quoted in the paper as saying he doesn't think it's necessarily right that politicians should be expected to tell the truth. Am I right or not? We've got Timothy Lancaster, the commander of the management planning team, HM Naval Base. Now, Devonport, Plymouth Naval Base is a nuclear naval base. It's a special naval base. And yet, we've got common purpose people mixing. So while you're all at home, at your jobs, doing what you need to run a normal life, these people are injecting raw Marxism into our society. Now, the office of the Deputy Prime Minister were very, very interesting, because the first time I phoned them to ask about common purpose, they didn't know anything about it. They'd never heard of it. The second time I phoned them, they put the phone down on me. So we've got a charity with Marxist connections that holds meetings behind closed doors, that's involved with the highest levels of government, and you pay for it. I was driving along in a car, and a guy who's done some brilliant research for us said to me very quietly, "Brian, what do these people want to do? Is it power? Is it money? Is it an ego trip?" And I said to him, "Say that again." And he did. He asked his question again. What do they want to do? What they want to do is kill you. If you talk to people who fought in the Second World War, if you talk to the troops who are in Afghanistan, in Iraq, they know the answer to this question. There are people trying to kill them. And there are older people who remember the Nazis, and they knew the Nazis were trying to kill people. Well, they did. Now, I'm here tonight as an ex-naval officer, and I say I'm not squeamish, because when I joined the Navy, I was told there are the guys over there, the object is to kill them before they kill you.